We're here at the 5th Pan Commonwealth Forum on Open Learning with Geoff Stead, Technical Director at Tribal. Good afternoon, Geoff.
Afternoon.
So, Geoff, tell me, what impact can e-learning have on the provision of education and training in Commonwealth countries?
It's a good question because it's actually quite a broad question. I guess there's two major areas from my perspective. The one area is bridging gaps or reaching out to learners that are being excluded at the moment. And I acknowledge that there's difficulties with provision of technology in all of the Commonwealth countries, but as soon as the technology is available, there's a wealth of resource available. So the first part is this bridging of gaps and the growing volume of open, very good quality, free educational resources and information and knowledge that's available. So that would be the first aspect. The second aspect is a kind of a leapfrog aspect, and this happens quite often in technology, that the early adopter countries and companies learn lots of painful lessons as they go along. And so if you look backwards at the e-learning journey, there's been some quite significant failures, some large investment in great ideas which really didn't work, often because they were trying to constrain learning too much. And the positive message is that we've learned a lot of lessons from that. We're ahead of that. So as increasing Commonwealth countries are opening up and putting more technology into schools and using e-learning as a way of reaching students, they can leapfrog all of these bad lessons from before and actually be ahead of the more high-tech countries. So I think there's a sort of a secondary underlying benefit, which is just waiting there in the wings, which is learning from other people's lessons and doing it even better. So those are two areas I can think of.
Right, excellent. We've heard of reference to a scattering of technology. What new methods of teaching can complement this?
Okay, so this scattering was a reference to the presentation I just gave.
Yes.
And that's the idea that technologies have been getting sort of faster and slightly cheaper and slightly smaller, but all of a sudden there's an explosion of different types of devices. So the thing I play games on can also read my email, and the TV that I watch can look up things on Google, and my iPod can watch videos that I've shot with my video camera, and I can send it between the two on using the internet. So that was the context, was this multiple small devices. We're saying what types of learning need to change now that that's happening, and again there's several different things. The one thing that needs to change is the way you deliver it. There's not a single device. It's not about classically e-learning is about a big screen and maybe some sounds and some questions and answers that you do, maybe connected to the internet to track what I'm doing, and it's quite placed and positioned. Whereas this scattering of devices changes that. So it means that a university might make little podcast snippets available of its lectures, but it's not worrying about what type of device the students have to listen to the podcast. They're just pushing them out there. They might also push out web-based versions of some of the resources, and you could access it from a phone and from a PC and from a PSP or a mobile gaming device. So all these different devices can interrelate. So it changes a little bit what you push out. You push out multiple streams of information. And learners, on the other hand, need to develop new skills because they need to be autonomous enough and empowered enough to go and pull down the bits that they need or the bits that work for them. So it slightly shifts the power balance. It's not about your right as a learner to have everything packaged up perfectly by your institution. It's you need as the learner to engage with your own ability to learn, your own set of devices, and how you get things. So I guess that's one that would be one strand. Another is less about the scattering of technology, and it's more about the sort of what's often referred to as the Web 2.0 internet, the collaboration, the people building on each other's knowledge. And that's a trend which is not just about the technology, it's more about just the use of the internet, that learners are working with other learners to create information and to create facts, and they're researching it themselves. They're not reliant on the teacher to be the sole conduit for giving information. The teacher is inspiring and lighting the match, but actually the fire is being sorted out by the learners themselves. And there's a shift in a lot of websites, and which has been called Web 2.0, but but the whole collaboration ethos is filtering down to ways of delivering the learning. So I guess that's another change, not directly to do with the scattering of devices, but connected to the same trend. It's the shift of empowerment to the learner and the responsibility to the learners for generating some of the knowledge themselves.
So what exactly is mobile learning? Do you have an example of a UK institution that you have worked with?
Mobile learning is trying to make use of these many different devices that are already in the learner's pockets and seeing how you can use that to enhance learning. That's the sort of broadest definition. We're working with quite a lot of institutions. One would be, for example, at Leeds Metropolitan University. They have learners who do half of their time working in the university and half the time working in hospitals, and they have a real difficulty with communication while the learner's in the hospital to share information back with their tutor. And one of our products called the Media Board, they use it to take pictures of what's going on in the hospitals and post them back on their phone and post them back with a message to this website which their tutor accesses. It's a kind of collaborative tool where they can look at the pictures and write comments and share information. And so we're working with this sort of university institution, higher ed institution, to help them bridge the boundaries of distance where the students are nowhere near the tutors, but they want to have some sort of relationship during the 6 months that they're based in a workplace. But that's just one very isolated instance. We also work with schools. So we work with a school called St. Luke's. It's a special needs school. I mentioned that in my presentation earlier. Yes. And this in St. Luke's, they're using the communication aspects. We've bought phones for all the children. They're connected. They have internet and phone connectivity, and they use the phones in different ways. They basically use them as portable media collectors. So when they're in a class and they're being presented with something they don't understand, they film it on their phone. They pick up their phone with the camera and they film what's going on. And then when they go home, they can speak to their parents and say, what are they asking me to do here? Equally, when they're at home, they're quite often nowhere near their friends because they're all bussed into this specialist school. And so they communicate with their friends and discuss homework problems on the phone. So those are some examples.
I hear you've worked with McDonald's, for example. And so does this technology help industry also?
Yeah, we've had a surprising amount of demand from industry. Quite often, in fact, almost always, what we're doing with industry is helping them do skills audits. So we're working with First Group, the bus drivers, we're working with various different groups of professionals where the employer wants to get a snapshot view of their skills, their literacy skills or their English language skills or their health and safety skills. Sometimes there's an audit need where they need to tick a box. And so we arrive with a box of devices like this with some learning materials and some tests. And we hand them out, and you do the test for 10 minutes, and you pass it on to somebody else, and he does the test. You pass it on to somebody else, he does the test. We collect them back in, and we get an audit of, just get sent to a website. We have an audit of everybody's skills. So in that kind of context, we do quite a lot of work with employers. It seems to fill a need. Yeah,
certainly. Back to Commonwealth countries. So can Tribal also advise on both technology and training?
Yeah, Tribal's a lot bigger than me. My bit of Tribal, we're specialists in how learning works and in the pedagogy, and we're publishers. We publish distance learning materials, online and paper-based materials. But the broader Tribal also inspects schools, we build schools, we do a variety, we advise the UK government on policy. So we are working at the moment in New Zealand and Canada and in South Africa in quite small niches. It's fairly new for us to be moving into these areas. But yes, we can totally advise on technology and training and policy and all of these areas. It wouldn't be me doing all of those, though.
Exactly. So you have a catalogue of products, and they cover niche areas, but they also cover mainstream topics.
Yeah, our existing catalogue is probably more niche areas than mainstream topics, to be honest. You very rarely find our distance learning courses being used in a school or in a mainstream HE provision. It's most often used in the UK in further education or work-based training. So it's the areas that aren't the mainstream, it is the niches. So if you want to help teachers, brief teachers in normal schools how to deal with special needs kids, we've probably written the manual to help you do that. Or if you're working with young offenders in prisons to try and improve their language skills or teach them business skills, we'll probably be doing that. But we probably won't be helping to teach science in a mainstream school. So those niche areas are where we're mostly based.
All right. So what have you find most interesting about this conference as a whole?
I really like the reality check of seeing all of the different issues that different countries are dealing with. And there's a huge amount of commonality, but there's also a lot of quite distinct needs and issues that are raised. And I find that really, I appreciate that. Being based in the UK, you tend to get a very UK-centric vision. I'm from South Africa, and every now and again I go out there on a visit, so I have a bit of an insight into the South African context. But beyond that, it's just mainly learning for me and to understand the many different issues that are raised in the different countries. So that's been the bit that I've enjoyed the most.
All right. Thank you very much,
That's
Geoff,
all right.
for joining us.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.